Hey quilters, this is Ann McNew. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing another little taste of Butler. I'm still working on Christmas quilts, trying to get them done. This one, as you can see, is just, I think they're actually 9-inch squares sewed together, just two different pieces of fabric, but it is flannel. So on the back of this quilt, I've decided to put Minky. So today we're going to be working on Minky, and I'm going to try and give you some tips. Now you can see this is the right side. It's this really pretty dark blue. So I've got it in my machine. I've got one side pinned. Now the important thing about putting Minky in is you have to make sure which way the stretch goes. So on this one, if I pull the edge, my stretch goes side to side instead of from top to bottom. So if I pull from top to bottom, I don't get a lot of stretch. So salvage to salvage is my stretch. So I want to make sure when I put this in my long arm that my salvages are to the side and the length of fabric is from the top to the bottom, because I don't want this to be all stretched out of shape. If I quilt it and it's stretched, when I take it out of the machine, what happens is everything that I quilted that looks flat, when I take it out, will bunch up. And I'll have lots of little puckers in my quilt. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the machine. I'm trying to decide if I want to put batting in it or not, since it is flannel on top of Minky. I'm not sure how thick that's going to be, but I do want a quilt that's nice and extra warm. So I'm probably going to put a lightweight batting in it, maybe a wool. So I'm going to get that in, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. Hey quilters, I'm back. I have my quilt in. You can see that I put this in, and I had a little bit of extra up here because my Minky was not squared up. So I just used the feet. Actually, I have bears on this. So I just used the feet of one of the bears as my guide to go all the way across. When you put your Minky in, you want to make sure that it is in square, because if it's not and it's in a little cattywampus, when you take it out, it could pull your quilt a little cattywampus. So my experiment today, I decided to use a batting in this. So I have flannel. I have an 80/20. This is by Windline. I love their batting. Make sure that you have your scrim side down, so the fuzzy side is up, and this keeps it from bearding, which is little bits of batting coming through to the back of your quilt. And then I've got my Minky, which is so soft. I've already done my stitching across the top, so I have this tacked in, and I did my zigzag stitch down the side. And that's going to hold my top in place as my machine is quilting. I've also got my clamps on. Now make sure when you put your clamps on the sides that you don't pull this tight, because we don't want to be stretching that whole Minky to the side. And then I put in my yardstick here underneath, and that's just going to hold this up so that when my machine comes over, it's not going to hit onto this and mess up my Butler. All right, so I'm going to come back over here. I've already put in, there we go. I've already put in the size of my quilting space, and now I'm going to add my pattern. So I'm coming over here. I'm going to click on pattern. I'm going to go to recent because I already went in and found the one that I wanted, and it's snowmen. And they are, apparently I didn't save it, so we're going to go ahead, get back into patterns. And I got all these different ones. Hang on just a minute here. Oops, sorry. Okay, there it is. This is the one I want. So I'm going to click on that, come over here. There's my check mark. And now I've got it onto my onto my quilting space. Now I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to try autofill. I always try autofill first. Now this is really a big snowman for this quilt, and that's not going to work for me. So I'm going to add another vertical row. So I'm going to click on this, and then I think I want to add one more snowman going across. Now, as you can see, I no longer fit in my quilting space, so I'm going to have to fix that. So I'm going to click on this and bring up my little dots. I'm going to grab that corner, give it a little time to do its thing, and pull it up. I'm not quite in the space yet, so I'm going to grab this, pull it over just to the orange space. I'm going to grab the bottom. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, pull that up just a little bit. All right, so now I'm in my space. Now I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go onto my home, and then I'm going to come over. Now remember, I have to have the needle lit up for it to actually stitch. And I'm going to hit start. It's going to ask me if I've got my needle up. I'm going to say yes. Now, as you can see here, it's moving. I'm just holding on to this thread. And this is kind of an experiment for me because this is going to be pretty thick, having flannel and Minky. So now it's telling me to pull up my bobbin thread. Oh, don't make me dizzy there. Pull this up. Get that bottom thread. Put those off to the side. Come back up here. I'm going to hit the check mark. And now it is going to move the machine to where the stitching is going to start. I'm just holding those threads out of the way, and it's going to start stitching. All right, so we're just going to let this stitch. I'm going to see how this is doing. I love the machine going all by itself, and I'm going to go do some other work, and I'm going to keep an eye on this because I'm not sure how it's going to handle this thickness. So when I get close to the end of this path, I'll be back. All right, quilters, I'm back. I'm done with my first pass, and we're going to go back and look at this. Now, as you can see, I'm going to get really close here. The Minky pulled up from the back. See all those little dark spots? That's the Minky coming up through. And because this is not a customer quilt, I'm not really too concerned, and I'll let that go. The other thing is, because I have the flannel and the batting, I have just a little bit where it seems like the flannel bunched up just a tiny bit. I'm also not too concerned about that because I think when it washes that will be okay, that's going to turn out. Now the snowmen are so adorable. They are just so cute. The other thing is, I told you that I was using Minky, and I did pull this from my stash, but I want to make sure that I let you know, in reality, this is called So Lush, and I got this at Joann's apparently a while back. So it has the same characteristics as Minky, but it's not the Minky brand. All right, so I am done with my first pass here. Now you can see I've kind of got a little bit, about an inch before I get to the edge of the quilt. And because I don't want to just end in the middle, it's just something I do, I'm just going to go ahead and just stitch off to the side. Now, when I come back up here, it is telling me to cut the thread. So that's what I'm going to do. Back down here. I'm going to pull my needle up, move my machine back, grab my thread, pull this forward, take one stitch, grab that thread, move my machine, pull that bobbin thread up, take my scissors, and I'm going to trim that thread. Okay. So now I'm coming up here, and I'm going to hit the check mark and say yes. And my machine is going to take off, and it's going to go down to the next pass. Now, I have to tell you, this actually turned out to be a much more intensive quilting design than what I was really thinking I was going to be doing. And that might also be part of the problem. All right, so it took a stitch. It's telling me to pull up the bobbin thread. So I'm going to just move the machine, pull up my bobbin thread. I don't have to put the machine back because it knows where it's going to go. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit the check mark. Yes. And it is going to go ahead and start doing its stitching and do the second pass. Now, as I was saying, I do think that maybe because I picked such an intensive pattern that might be why I've got a little bit of this bunching coming up here. And like I said, I'm really not too concerned because I know when I wash this that a lot of that is just going to disappear back into it. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run. I thought I'd let you look at some quilter's eye candy while I give you my final thoughts on the quilt. Would I use flannel batting and Minky on the back again? I'm going to say yes, I probably will. The only problems I seem to have is that I had puckering on the top flannel a tiny bit. Not so much that I think it won't come out when the quilt is washed, because I really do think that flannel might shrink a little bit, or, you know, over time have a little give to it. I don't have the quilt to show you because it was a Christmas present and I gave it away. And yes, this is April that I'm finishing this up, but there's been a lot going on in the last 3 months. So that's going to be my excuse. But I did want to say that the back of it quilted beautifully. The front of it, I had a little problem with that beading of the Minky coming to the top. And remember, it wasn't true Minky. It was the Joann's. I guess it's like an imitation Minky that they have. It was a child's quilt, so I don't think they're going to complain about it. I did have more of a problem on one area of the quilt, so it may have just been that particular piece in that particular area, because it didn't seem like the rest of the quilt didn't seem to have a problem with that. So I'm going to say yes, I would do that if it's something that I was going to give as a gift to like a child or maybe a teenager, or for an everyday quilt. Would I ever do that for a customer? I would probably do it if they really, really wanted me to. It did make a very heavy, warm quilt. But I would have to tell them that there's a possibility that it could have a few puckers on the top, because that's just the nature of the beast, apparently, when you have flannel and batting and a Minky type fabric for the backing. So now that you've been looking at this quilter's eye candy here, this is a Celtic Knot design that I did hand applique. I took a class from Raymond Houston. I do want to give a shout out to Raymond because I really enjoyed the class and I really like the whole Celtic look of this. Not sure how I'm going to quilt it, so that will be a future video. So I will put Raymond's link in the bottom of this in the description so that you can go find him. Please try and support any of your local quilt artists, especially at this time, because this is how people are making a living. And we definitely want to support our local artists. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, hit the like button, and I will see you next time.